So you've got plenty of crypto, you're all set for the bull run, but the question is, do you know how to secure your crypto? And if we checked, would we find that yours was in fact safe? Hey everybody, good morning, good now. Whether you're listening morning, noon, or night, welcome to the Rise Up Morning Show. My name is Evan. It is so good to be here with you. At the start of the week, we're here on Monday. We're going to talk about security this week, as well as do a few housekeeping tips around the basics. We want to talk a little more about wallets, what they are, how you get them, what your tokens are really, and then what keys are. These are all ingredients, components, if you will, that you got to use to write in that magic notebook that Alex loves to talk about. And that's what we do here. We love to talk about future technology, but specifically blockchain, so that everyday people like us can understand it better and set themselves up to benefit from it. And Alex and I, we're not alone. We got a great community of people here who tune into the show every week and also who care about this stuff and coalesce around it in Discord. That's where we live when we're not here. It's discord.g community. And if you miss us and we're not on the show, that's where we are. We'd love to see you there. But we'll be here all week, Monday through Thursday, 7 a.m. Central Standard Time to 8:30. Hey, Alex. Oh, there you are. There you are. Alex, how are you this morning?
So far, so good.
So far, so good. This is, I think, my first time getting to. Oh no, maybe it's not my first time. Did you have your new phone last week? We were talking about it last week, weren't we?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it does. It looks good, man.
it's in there. I'm just trying to. The gimbal attachment's not as nice as my other one, so I'm working on that. But anyway,
That's all you
how's it
can
going?
do.
How are
It's
you?
going good.
How are you doing so far?
I wanted to tell you, this weekend, man. I had the chance to finally go. Kim and I went on our Valentine's Day date post Valentine's Day. And we finally used the escape room pass that you guys got for me probably like a year and a half ago. Alex and the guys at Faceless got me a pass to an escape room here in Memphis. All the love I have for immersive games and storytelling, and I've never been to an escape room. And the one we did, it was called Shadow Manor. It was a story about this like woman who, is heartbroken in this like haunted house kind of scenario. And it was super fun. So thank you for that, man. We had a great date
Of
and
course.
it was all thanks to you guys. We did that and some other stuff and you know, and then yesterday I had a band practice. I had a great weekend. And I'm excited to be here to talk about crypto. So you know, what the hell, man? I saw you had a good weekend too. It looks like in terms of were you working on that engine that your guy gave you? Is that the one?
Yeah, that was the carburetor. It needs to get completely disassembled and make sure that none of the pieces need to get replaced. So I'm trying to decide if it needs to get rebuilt or not. Um,
Yeah,
it's like it's all new, but it's sat outside for 3 years, so it probably needs to get redone. But
man. I tell you about my truck?
yes, you
Yeah,
did. That you blew a head gasket.
I still am thinking about how am I gonna I just can't comfortably let it go for like the price of scrap. And I've been
I mean,
talking
how
to
much?
lots of different people about, will you help me? Can you fix it? What do you think? And I think I found a guy who like is gonna do it mostly for the love, uh, and
I was
to
going to
teach
say
me.
that's not the worst repair ever.
Yeah,
And given that it's on a truck that works otherwise, I'm sure that it's not totaled because of it.
yeah. Well, cross your fingers for me. It's a topic under investigation that we'll have to keep looking into. But we're not talking about that today. We're talking about security today, among other things. I was just telling people, but I didn't tease them about the giveaway that we were entertaining. Do you want to tease that, or maybe we should do one of those things that everybody on TikTok does, where we say tap the screen, and if we get to 10,000 likes, we'll tell you about this giveaway or something like
If
that.
we get to 14 million likes, we'll tell you what it is. Yeah, we're thinking about. So obviously, the topic for this week is wallets. It's a pretty broad topic.
Yeah.
But largely, you can separate these things into two main categories: hot and cold. We'll get into the specifics and stuff, throughout the week as we approach different layers of this topic. But simply put, just for the sake of conversation here, hot, connected to the internet; cold, not. And cold wallets are largely considered to be one of the most secure ways that you can store digital assets of any kind. Really depends on what you're storing. Not every wallet can hold everything. All these things and more we will cover this week. But Evan and I were talking about giving away a cold wallet at the end of the week to celebrate another successful week of the morning show.
And of
So,
course, celebrate you, viewer, and your security acumen, because whether or not you win the giveaway, we hope everybody is going to start implementing some simple, effective security practices to keep their crypto and other digital assets safe. It's not hard. It doesn't have to be scary. And we thought it'd be fun as we explain it. Maybe tomorrow, did we say, or Wednesday, do a setup walkthrough on a hardware wallet, but we
yep.
can do other things on wallets, adding a network, moving your assets that people get confused about, that people get nervous about, even people who do it a lot like us. I still, Alex, I don't know about you, but if I'm, sending to a new protocol, or
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
moving a fair amount of, anything, something that's precious to me, I do. Sometimes when it has that, waiting for the block to finalize, I think to myself, oh, I get a little tight.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Definitely. I mean, no matter what I'm doing, I still triple and quadruple check,
Yep.
addresses, and it's just a good habit to put yourself in because you never know. The
Mm-hmm.
second you get, I mean, what do they say? Complacency kills. So the second you quit paying attention, that's the second you're going to make a mistake. And here, the mistakes can be costly. So,
Yeah, so be sure to tune in this week. Give us your security questions, your scenarios, and be sure especially to tune in Thursday. I'm talking to you if you're watching the TikTok live right now. I'm talking to you if you're watching YouTube. We're going to be here Thursday, 7:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. That's 7 a.m. Who the heck am I? To 8:30 a.m. Oh my God. It's a live show, people. 1 p.m. UTC. And we would love to give away a wallet then by some criteria to be determined. Maybe you got to show up in the audience, and we'll pick from everybody who comments or something like that. But we'll let you know, and we'll have a POAP for you Thursday too. So for now, send us your questions. Stay tuned. We'll go through a couple of headlines, and then we'll start talking a little about security. If you want to help the show, give that screen a tap. Send it to one of your friends who's curious about this stuff. Your nephew Carl, who's telling you to buy Dogecoin all the time, send it to him. We'd love to talk to Carl, and we can get into some headlines. What do you think, man?
sounds good.
Cool, cool. Oh my gosh, nephew Carl, what a guy.
Sounds like a real piece of work.
Yeah, he sure does. Hang on, I'm going to old crypto panic here.
Jim, you can put pretty much whatever right in the general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, general is the place to go. If you post it there, we can talk about it on the show too. Um, So the most interesting headline that's jumping out to me is probably the first one on your dashboard too, if you're looking at old crypto panic, which is that I can't tell if it's a worthy article or just a headline, is the Cryptopolitan one about David Schwartz.
Mm,
Ripple's CTO addresses allegations of XRP price manipulation. I feel like it might just be a headline.
probably. I mean, I'm sure it has something to do with the idea that they are releasing so much every single month.
Yeah,
Um,
David Schwartz calls it programmatic sales.
yep. I
Yeah,
mean,
and I've actually heard him speak on this before briefly. I don't enjoy listening to him speak. He's kind of a dense speaker for me. He's a highly technical guy. I have never, though, had any problems with anything he really says. I feel like he's like a Charles Hoskinson. Like, I would be interested to see the two of them in a conversation with each other. He's got a lot of thoughts and a lot of opinions that are probably well earned. from the work he has, rightly done. And
Yeah.
talking to dudes like me who probably don't get it on his level is like his idea of it. But I've always found him, helpful when he speaks. Um, but that's the whole article as it looks like. It doesn't look like they give much more than just his statement, which says, I do not believe our scheduled XRP sales manipulate the price in any way. I am confident we've made every effort to minimize the impact of our scheduled sales, which is, of course, what his lawyer would want him to say. We should note,
Yep.
as their lawsuit is ongoing. Good for him. But, we'll see.
I was going to say, I mean, it's funny because it obviously does influence the price.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's monthly scheduled regular sell pressure. Although you think that at this point it's probably priced in. Um, and I mean we've talked about this a lot. I find it to be necessary. The XRP drama that I saw the last week or so was a bunch of people on Twitter getting butthurt that a bank referred to it as a stable coin, or expressed a desire for it to be a stable coin. Like, yeah, that's the only way that it's going to work. Pick an arbitrary amount that it's going to be pegged to, and then stick it to that, and then use it for that. Otherwise, none of your clients are actually going to use it. The only people who are going to find any interest in it are speculative holders. Which,
Yeah. Yeah.
although, can we just all agree that for the XRP holders' sake, sending it to $1 and keeping it there would probably be good. I mean, that's still up from where it's at now.
Yeah, and it would be good. It definitely would be good. More people would use the token. You'd get all those things you want on your network. The ledger would certainly have a lot of data there. People would love that. No, that was just that, but that was just the first headline I saw in Crypto Panic. I honestly was much more excited to talk about some of the stuff happening in the NFT space this weekend.
Yeah, a lot
The
of drama.
headline update we got from Mihir is there's a couple things, but the first thing I want to say is congratulations to the Pudgy Penguins um, and company, whether you're a holder or you're just a fan, for flipping the Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT collection. That was not on my bingo card to see penguins have a higher floor price than apes. But if I'm honest, Alex, I'm not surprised. What about you?
Nope. I think of those two, you have one that has retained value just because of its legacy status, and the other one that is gaining value because it's making an attempt and an effort to do something. So one of those has a longer shelf life than the other, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Um, and what do you think about the news that now Yuga, the company that owns Bored Apes, has bought Proof Collective, which owns Moonbirds, another PFP collection that was, at one time extremely
Yeah.
hot and is still probably considered, a blue chip. Um, I personally am really I'm interested in that. Are you hip to Kevin Rose and some of the stuff that kind of just has gone on with him the last year or so?
Yeah, vaguely. Not. I would say I know you are more than me. I mean, I know that he's not the most beloved figure.
Yeah.
Um, I know that Proof essentially, but in the eyes of their holders at least, pretty much just soft rugged everybody. Um, I don't. I guess I don't know a ton of the nuance, but I know that they essentially made a shitload of money, canceled their basic utility. There's not a great explanation for what happened or what is going on. Kevin Rose left, something like that. I don't know. I mean, you'd have to fill me in a little bit on the details, but
Yeah, so Kevin Rose more or less he didn't leave. And honestly, I am getting hip to this latest weekend of like what this sale means. Now he's I think gone. I don't think he's continuing it, but he had pulled back some from his involvement in mostly in social media, was what he said. He said it on an episode of the Tim Ferriss show, in conversation with Tim, that he had pulled back from social media or was spending less time on Twitter and going somewhere else instead, but had assured people that he would continue working on Proof. Especially was really known for these kind of collaborative art drops they did. One of the valuable things about holding a Proof NFT is that you were pretty much guaranteed to either get for free or get for low prices what they called grails, which are limited collections by well-known artists in the NFT space. People like X Copy Art. I feel like they did something with Rafik Anadol. I mean, huge artists. It was a great token to hold, and it makes sense for somebody like you to acquire it. But I feel like the question I'm asking in the wake of this kind of like mix up, shuffle up, and I feel like the question everyone in the audience is going to be asking is, okay, great, these NFTs are worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
Which one's going to be worth a lot of money next? How do I get my hands on it? And how do you find out about it or know about this stuff? And I feel like I have a couple thoughts on that, but I mean, I don't know, just generally somebody who cares about that. How the hell do you know to buy a penguin that's going to be worth thousands of dollars in the future? And is that all an NFT is good for? Is what we talk about a lot. But I don't know. What are your tips for those people?
I mean,
What are your
hindsight's
thoughts
20,
for them?
hindsight's 2020. So I would instead approach it, like what lesson can we learn about where the Penguins went? Um, because I vividly remember when they minted and when a number of individuals here on crypto TikTok um, took some relatively shady promotion deals to do, you know, a bunch of shilling of the Penguins. They definitely got tainted when that happened. Um,
Yeah.
I remember all of that drama coming out. I remember the DMs getting leaked. I remember I mean, I'm sure he would tell you more about it, but that was a big part of the reason that Mason left that group. Um, Interestingly enough, and so at the time, I definitely remember thinking like, okay, well, this is just another flopped, crappy. And granted, that was previous management, right? That was old ownership.
Yeah.
Before Luca took over. So I think the point to think about and to pay attention to is obviously the point at which they were taken over, and they were. I forget how Luca took over. Did he just kind of step in? He didn't pay for
He bought
anything.
it.
He bought it.
Um, I am pretty sure he bought it, and I can give you a figure in just a second.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe now that you said that, I do remember a buy, but I don't remember how much. I mean, either way.
I think at that time he bought them out by buying a treasury. So, okay, they had
That's
a
right.
bidding war, and there were several people. Beanie is an influencer who's in on it, and he ousted the founders. He won the bidding war for $2.5 million. He's a self-made millionaire who previously made his first million selling fake gold chains. So
Nice. Very nice. Okay. So anyway, the point is that if we just look at it from the point where Luca took over and then started to try to turn it around and do stuff, ultimately what we have is just a great redemption story. And I think hindsight being what it is, we can look back and say that's probably the piece that clutched it, because at that point, no matter what he did, I think that he was, I don't want to say necessarily destined to bring it back, but I think at that point it was harder and harder for him to fail. You know what I mean? Because even if he had flopped, even if like he buys it, he has a utility plan, it doesn't work. Whatever, I'm just
yeah,
making
sure.
whatever it is. You still have a guy who's like coming in and trying, and the community will rally around a figure like that when they have a reason to, want it to resurge. Because at the end of the day, we were just talking about this in our Discord. At the end of the day, I don't know why this isn't talked about more. The only thing that's required for an NFT collection, a general like PFP style NFT collection, to have a floor of $400 million, is that everyone who's holding them decide that that's what they want the floor to be, and that's what they set it at. Like, the floor means absolutely nothing. It doesn't mean anything. there
Yeah,
are,
unlike a crypto token where you've got to convince more people to buy it before the exchanges are willing to sell it at a higher price,
yeah.
if you and your 400 friends just get together and decide this is what we'll sell it for, you can actually raise the price of the token.
I mean, Evan and I could, in the next 10 minutes, mint a collection, and it could become the collection with the highest floor price ever because Evan and I could each list both of ours for $10 billion. And all of a sudden, we have an NFT collection with a floor of 10 bit. Like, the floor means nothing. So
Honestly, Alex, that's not a terrible idea to try and,
that's
just
kind of
unleash
fun.
our perpetuity. We could probably do that. Let's get on this.
We just got to convince some VC that we know something they don't. Like,
Yeah, hey man, have you seen them? They're already 10 ETH.
we don't know anything about them, but all we know is that the floor is $1 billion. But no, like my point is that if you take this large community that wants to see it come back, that wants to see their project get fixed, that wants to see them have not been scammed, and then you have an individual with a good heart who like wants to fix it for these people, in Luca, and he comes in and he starts trying to do stuff and giving it effort, and absolutely no, regardless of what you think about this kind of stuff, no one can look at Luca and say that he didn't put in a lot of work and effort and turn it around. But I think that he was set up for success just because he took the risk and took the stab, and the community wanted to see him succeed. So he succeeded. So I think that but of course the Penguins are not a dime a dozen collection because they were high profile to begin with. There was a lot of attention on them already. So it's not like someone could just take over, some random ass project. But if we think about some other ones that there probably are a lot of holders who would probably make someone's bid to write the project. I mean, think about I don't know, I'm trying to name a couple that are probably super defunct. And Evan, I'd be curious what the floor is on these because I'm sure it's down. I don't know what is going on with my phone lighting, but it suddenly just constantly looks like I'm in shadows, and
I was going to say, I wonder, are you producing a noir film?
Apparently, dude, the amount of ultra bright light shining on me right now is ludicrous. I'm blinded by how bright this key light is right now, and
yet you still look like a man who's about to receive a dame in his office at a midnight hour in a city that knows how to keep its secrets. Yeah.
All I'm missing is the large pipe and the white Persian cat. Whatever. We ball.
No, you're good. Yeah. Hit me with some of these collections. Let me see my fastest finger if I can get floor price.
So the Sneaky Vampire Syndicate was a super hyped launch because I think the someone who drew the apes, the bored apes, also is the artist for Sneaky Vampires. I remember because I was at Disney World I was at Universal when the vampires were minting, and me and Mac were on the phone trying to get in and get some. And I mean, that was one of those things when gas was $500. And so, I mean, and I remember because the mint happened, they were all unrevealed.
They had some cool mechanics. And honestly, I thought interesting storytelling for a PFP collection at that time. They seemed well developed. I was like, oh yeah, this is cool.
I mean, I think that's why they had so much hype, because it really presented like a really well put together project, and that was at a time when that is all you needed to do to sell. Was just, you didn't have to do shit. You just had to paint a really compelling brochure. Mechaverse is 100% on my list. No, 100% on my list.
Okay, but before we go to Mechaverse, just do a guess. What do you think the floor price for Sneaky Vampire Syndicate is right now?
So, okay, if I 100%, honest to God, I have not looked in ages. I remember they minted at 0.08. They went up to a quarter of an ETH. Mac and I were sitting there staring at it, and I was like, I'm going to get a couple. And then we didn't. And then the floor went to 3.5 ETH. And I don't know that it ever peaked from that again. I would have to guess that they are in dollars. I don't even know, because what does ETH cost right now? Almost $3,000.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say under 0.1 ETH.
Okay, right now it is 0.03. Uh,
Yikes.
according to CoinGecko, I see No was saying zero point 0.7, which I was like, wow. I don't know whoever's selling it for that. Good for them. According to CoinGecko, it's 0.03. The all-time high was 2.8 ETH in September 21. So at that time,
Yep.
it was about $8,000. All-time low actually was just about a year ago. They've actually risen. They were 0.01 ETH in
Gotcha.
December of
Yeah.
22.
There are listed vampires on OpenSea for 0.0378. That's the floor.
Yeah, and just to to catch people up to that, that's well, let me not do the math this early in the morning.
Yeah.
Keep going. You said you had some others.
Mm-hmm.
Let me hit some others.
The other big one that had a ton of hype on TikTok, that I never got involved in, but at the time I definitely was kicking myself because they did some moving, that I also haven't looked at in forever, is the Sympathy for the Devils collection. You remember that one?
Yeah.
Because they also were one of those that had some interesting
That was a
mechanics.
Solana NFT, wasn't it?
Nope, that's an ETH.
Oh, let me see.
But they did that, like, I can't remember what they called it, but like some sort of, it was essentially a fusion thing. They had like the kitchen thing. You could, like, mix two of them together. That's another one that definitely ripped for a bit, and I would be amazed if they have any sort of movement or anything right now. That one's got to be near dead too, if not dead. I mean, looking at the vampires here, this seems like it's dead.
Yeah. 0.04 ETH. The most expensive NFT sold in the last couple of days. Oh, there were none sold in the last couple of days. There were some that were burned. Yeah.
So
there's a really rare looking one that was sold for $33 22 days ago.
Yeah, I mean, so that's one of those things. Like, okay, so my analysis of these is that these are, and then we can actually get to some wallet stuff, because this is neither here nor there. But these are the kinds of collections that I think, like, randomly, for no reason at all, somebody could just be like, hey, I want my own collection and I don't want to do it. Let's look at the Pudgy Penguin's success, because if I can guarantee you one thing about the NFT/crypto space, it's that successful shit will be the subject of multiple derivatives. And they don't just have to derive the visual aesthetic. I think that we will start to see, like, collection trajectory derivatives as well. It would not surprise me if someone wanted to white knight one of these defunct collections. I mean, the Roaring Leaders is another one that was, like, super hyped up and is probably in the gutter. And what's interesting is that I wouldn't call any of these rugs. Mechaverse is a little different. We can talk about that one. We should hit that one really quick, just because that one was wild and that was a different type of scenario than these other couple that we just said. But because if you look at the Sneaky Vampire Syndicate's Twitter, they're still, like, putting out a new roadmap for this entire year. Like, there's still somebody there who's, like, talking about doing shit, and they're going to some convention, and they're doing some staking thing, and they're making a comic book, and all this, whatever. They're like active. No, I would say they're loosely active on Twitter. But you couldn't call it a rug. You just have to call it kind of a failure. Which it happens, right? I mean, I think the vast majority of attempted businesses are probably not super successful.
The statistic is over 90% of businesses fail within 5 years.
Yeah. So, is that really surprising? But what I would imagine is that I wonder how much it would be, because that's the thing on OpenSea, right? You can, like, offer on an entire collection.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of places you can do that. I don't know for certain. I've never done it.
Because, I mean, I think Sneaky Vampire's problem is probably that they launched too many things. Because then they had the vampiress, whatever. They had the bats.
too many assets too soon, and
Some
then
weird blood token
and then
thing.
delivering the same kind of stuff. I really feel like the Penguins playbook is the playbook.
Yep.
I think our playbook to some extent was our collection is a great one to talk about in this too. Our collection, the Vampire Syndicate, any of these PFP collections, if someone's like, what's going to go to the moon next? I would say, really, what's going to happen is somebody somewhere who has the vision to give physical and digital experiences that mean something to the group of people that hold the token. Whether that's we built a clubhouse in Miami for Bored Apes, whether that's we put our plushies in toy stores and you could get a percentage of sales if we use your toy, whether it's an animated show, whether it's a series of books and stories that people love. I think intellectual property and people who love it is what becomes valuable there. And like you said about floor price specifically, getting a couple of friends together and saying this is what we're going to do. That's the fastest, easiest way to do it. But it's hard to maintain that unless there are people on the back end who are saying, okay, great, I'm glad you did that. Now here's what we can do with it. Um, we talk about it. I think what will another mistake that like we made that I bet a lot of these people made that is an easy mistake to make is keeping sales in volatile cryptocurrencies because you're worried about taxes, because you're not sure what to do with it, because you're speculating or whatever.
Well,
If I had it to do again, I would have raised my vote for let's move it to USDC tomorrow. you know.
I mean, yeah, obviously, hindsight being what it is, that's an easy thing to say. I mean, I made the point to someone else who had asked me the other day about that. Was that even if all of the legal stuff and all of the tax implications were, totally not muddy, and we weren't waiting for our accountant to say, yep, go ahead, and the lawyer to say, yep, don't worry about it, and all this other stuff, like even if all of that on day one had been, can you imagine what the community response would have been to just immediately selling the entire mint treasury? Because I promise you, and I'm very confident in saying this, that it would not have been good. It would have been bad. And you would have, I mean, granted, now also in hindsight, I would have preferred to do damage control on that move than
Yeah,
live
me
with
too.
the consequence of not doing it. However, that would have been some significant damage control.
Yeah,
Um, because at the time, it was a very different time. Now, I don't think now you would be looked at any type of way for doing something like that. But at the time, we were, only up from here. It was the perma bull that was going to be forever. There was not going to be a bear market for this one. After this bull market, we were just going to keep going forever. And had you done something like that, you would have immediately just been called a rug from here to Timbuktu and back again. And then constantly would have been dealing with questions like, where is it? What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. All this, a thing that no other business really has to deal with. But NFTs were completely different, and I think now people are just realizing like, no, they are businesses. Which, granted, I said this from the beginning that like, dude, most of these are just fintech companies. Interestingly, those have probably an even higher chance or a failure rate.
I bet they do.
Um, the one thing I think we did really correctly that, also cost us because there were just so many people involved was that there were so many people involved. There wasn't just like, two people in a garage whipping this shit off. There was 11 to 13
Yeah, right.
nearly full-time employees building this shit. So anyway, that was a fun little trip down
Yeah,
memory lane, but that would be my
but you got
prediction.
some news for it. You got things to look for. Look for if this is what you're doing. Ultimately, my bottom line would be, look for somebody running their company like a business, and look to spot that. And if you just want to, make money because it's a bull run, then be prepared to lose some money too. You can speculate. Speculating is fine, but as Alex always says, know that that's what you're doing. And there's a big difference between speculating and investing. It's hard to invest in a profile picture NFT project. But congrats to Pudgy Penguins, man. Shout out to them.
Yep.
Luca, I read a profile on him once upon a time. I think he, at one point, didn't have a home, was living out of his car, was just like hustling, trying to make things work. And Now here he is. He's a millionaire. Way to go, man.
Yeah, that's that's certainly a story.
It's certainly a story. Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
I
Um,
think the interesting thing is that due to the nature of these decentralized types of collections, there is literally nothing to stop someone from like take the sneaky vampires for example, right? There's like nothing to stop some creator from being like, I'm gonna build a protocol and let anyone with a vampire just like plug it into it and like do a thing. And it's a soft takeover. Like I'm not buying shit. I'm just doing something. And then all of a sudden everyone's like, dude, I'm gonna go grab one. They're dirt cheap compared to what they were, and you just have a takeover of that cow. Like that would be super interesting because
it would be,
you could go do that. There's nothing
it would be
stopping
possible.
anybody from going to do that.
Imminently possible.
Yep.
Absolutely. And there are so many. I mean, vampires. I'm thinking about the
Any
vampires balls they have in Salem or wherever every year. That would be a cool thing for a
yep.
bunch of people to own one. And now all of a sudden it's actually their ticket and it's a collectible and people care about it. And most of them live in this one place, and so they can meet together and make decisions. And the founders are like, who the hell are these 500 people who bought our NFTs in Salem, Massachusetts, or whatever. Like, but that's how it works, man.
Yep.
That would be cool.
It's
Okay.
funny too, you never hear this. Just a
No.
rant. I just looked up another old collection that I
Uh-oh. What?
forgot about. The Cyber Kongs.
Oh, yeah.
Dude,
That's an OG collection.
you never hear about that shit, but they're at every convention and conference with like a massive presence, and their floor is
Yeah.
16.9 ETH.
Wow. Wow. I bet they sold their treasury for USDC. I bet 100% they did. They must have, if they're still around.
Wild.
Wow.
That's an old collection. When did they mint?
CyberCons were before the Bored Apes, I do
Yeah,
believe.
that was a
Um, okay, so if you're just tuning in, let me reset the room for you real quick and tell you a couple things. Alex and I are here every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to answer your crypto questions, to talk through headlines like this, give context for historical events, and just generally help you understand what's going on in the crypto, the Web3, the blockchain space. We're also not afraid to talk about stuff that is adjacent when we know about it. AI, light quantum computing, and of course, the reason you should tune into this show is because we are not afraid to tell you we don't know something. And we're not afraid to go look it up, to ask one of our friends who does, to put you in touch with better information. So if that's your kind of thing, then welcome. We are so glad that you're here. You can tune into the show live every Monday through Thursday, and you can join us in the Discord to keep the conversation going. It's free, always going to be free. If you got an article you want to post, you got a project you want us to dive into, something like that, that's probably an even better place to do it. It's discord.gg/themany. And we share, along with our friends in the Faceless Many community, all kinds of stuff all the time, whether it's news related to regulations, tokens we're looking at, projects and companies we think are interesting for good or bad reasons. So it's a great place to go to really accelerate your learning journey on the crypto path. We'd love to see you there. Discord.gg/themany. And go ahead, do us a favor. If you're here live, please tap that screen. Let people know that this is helpful. Leave us a comment, whether you're here live or in the future on a platform like YouTube with your question. All of those things, sharing the show, that helps people. Sharing your feedback with us, that helps people. And who knows, we're going to do a giveaway a little later this week. And so we want to spread the word. It's going to be a giveaway that's going to help you with your security. It's going to make our show a little fun. Just something to do because we love you. So let us know what your questions are and what your comments, your thoughts are. Join us in the Discord, and we'll do a little light briefing on security, because if you're going to be handling this new kind of information, this new kind of asset, you're going to need to protect it maybe a different way. The same you would with your money or your medical data. You want to protect your tokenized digital assets. Where should we start, Alex, with that? Should we start with just light
well,
tokens and keys, so people
I was
understand
gonna
what
say
they're
I think
protecting?
I think the natural starting place here is keys because um, I mean you got to start with the key. What are we putting on a wallet? Evan.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So I'm trying to think of how to extend this to the Magic Notebook. Um, but
Hmm.
your Magic Notebook, Alex often describes the blockchain as a Magic Notebook because it's essentially a record. But what is magical about this notebook is that everybody who uses this network has a copy of the notebook. And whenever I write something in it, it goes in your notebook as well. The notebooks check to make sure that the author has permission to write a thing. They all validate the message together, and poof, it appears. Everybody's copy is updated. If I was going to extend that analogy, I would say your public and private keys are like your public key is like your username that appears in the notebook whenever a message from you happens. Mine would be Conversations with Evan. One day you open your notebook and you see that Conversations with Evan has sent something to Alex at Faceless Labs. That is my public key. Anybody who knows that key, for lack of a better term, can send me information, and it's encrypted. Now, the name on my public key, Conversations with Evan, is not really the address of that key. Because we're using cryptocurrency, the address of that key is an encrypted string of numbers and letters that's way too long and difficult to memorize. So this is more like my web domain, my www.evan.com, which
Yep.
resolves to an encrypted string of numbers. The blockchain knows that my public key is paired with that name, but that's like my
It's
public key. Go ahead.
another good equivalent here would be that it's like your mailing address. So,
Yeah,
like, someone who
exactly.
knows your mailing address or your phone number can reach out to that address or that phone number. They can send you mail. They can send you a text. They can call you. But knowing your cell phone number does not mean that they can log into your phone and call someone from your phone number, or that they can, knowing your address doesn't mean that they can walk through the front door of your house.
Yes. And your private key would be like if your notebook had a lock on the cover to unlock it in order for you to write and read different transactions. That's your private key. It's also an encrypted string of data. And like the key to a mailbox that anybody could drop something in, your private key allows you to open that mailbox or that notebook, put things in, and take them out. Um, the way that crypto works comes from cryptography, encrypted information. And each blockchain does it a little bit differently, but generally speaking, there is an algorithm by which when you sign up for your copy of the notebook, you just get a private key. And that key string, that string of numbers, can be used to generate an infinite number of public keys so that you only got to log in one place. But if you wanted to create many different public addresses, you could do that. Free, cheap, easy. And you might do that for a number of reasons. The same reason that you don't wear, a tank top to your white collar job, and you don't wear a white collar shirt to the gym. You have a different identity depending on where you are. You might not want the people at your workplace to know that you hold a Moondix NFT. You might not want your Bored Ape friends to know that you work for the SEC. And so you would have different public keys that you would use the same way you put on different hats in different places. Uh, I
At the end of the day,
yeah, I'm kicking it to you.
there's there's two there's basically two things that matter when it comes to cryptocurrency. There's two essentially. There's like the word is key. Another way to think about it is a password.
Yeah,
So the public one is the one that everyone gets to see, and that password lets anybody just see where the token is, see what that address is holding, look it up on a blockchain explorer, um, you know, get some basic information about it, and then send something to it if they wanted to send something to that address. Then you have the private key, which is the one that only you should know. And that's the one that lets you do things with that wallet. Take stuff out of it, send things from it, cash out, sell, whatever.
and also authorize things. Like if Alex wanted to prove that I had done something, if he was like, "Hey Evan, how do you feel about whatever?" If he texted me that, somebody could be grabbing my phone, could be answering back. But if he said, "Evan, if you, I don't know, if you want to vote for Donald Trump, sign this transaction," doesn't give him permission to access my assets, but it allows me to securely verify something because of all the steps I'd have to go through to prove it to him. So it can be really helpful for that too. I'm sorry I interrupted, but that's a big one.
So the first piece of interesting nuance here is that when we start talking about wallets, you are not actually storing any cryptocurrency on the wallets itself. If Evan has a Bitcoin and he bought it from Coinbase, the exchange, so he makes an account with Coinbase and he pays for 1 Bitcoin, and now his Coinbase account has 1 Bitcoin in it. He can leave it there forever if he wants. And then, it goes up by 20% and he's like, cool, I want to sell it. He sells it. He withdraws his money to his bank account. He could be done forever. Or he could be like, you know what? I think that in 10 years, this thing's going to be worth a lot more. I'm going to take it and put it in my own wallet. So on the screen, it looks like he is taking that Bitcoin from his Coinbase account and sending it to his own wallet. However, he's really not. The Bitcoin never actually changed location, right? It still lives on the blockchain. It is on the blockchain. It will forever be on the blockchain. It's not going anywhere. You cannot take it off of the blockchain, the Bitcoin itself. What you can do is secure and lock up the private password key that lets you send that Bitcoin somewhere. So as long as it's on Coinbase's account, on Coinbase's platform, 2 people have permission to move that Bitcoin. Evan does, because he bought it, but Coinbase is custodying it. So if they wanted to, they could also interact with it and take it, because they are currently storing that private password for Evan. If Evan sends his Bitcoin from his Coinbase account to his personal wallet, instead of moving the Bitcoin, what he's doing is saying, hey, Coinbase, that little slip of paper that has my giant long password on it, go ahead and hand it over, and I'll keep it for myself. And then he puts that password on his wallet. The wallet is storing a bunch of passwords that give him and him alone permission to move his crypto. Here's an interesting trust element to this whole thing, because we have to trust, sort of, and I'll get into details later, but you sort of have to trust that Coinbase is actually not keeping a copy of that key, that they're actually not retaining permission. They had it once. Technically, theoretically, they could just be like, yeah, sure, Evan, it looks like it's over here now. On the chain, it looks like it's being stored in a different wallet. But whatever. We're going to pretend that it's now somewhere else. There's obviously code in place to prevent them from doing that. And if you really wanted to know, you could look up that code and you could, they could get audited and all that sort of stuff.
And also some legal agreements, like some old school stuff that a big company would want to do, that their lawyer says, guys, we got to do this.
It's a publicly traded company. So imagine what would happen to them as a company if it got out that they were effectively not doing that, right? It would be bad. So, that's one way you can sleep a little bit easier. However, there was Ryan, real quick. So Ryan asked, how do you tell the addresses apart? So the addresses all have a unique string of numbers and letters that make up the address. So no 2 are the same. You can tell them apart simply by looking at that big string of numbers. However, like Evan was mentioning earlier, just staring at a giant string of numbers is kind of a difficult way of doing it, because you'd have to be going letter by letter, and they can be super close. They could be off by only one single character. So what's happening more and more is that there are different ways to label these things differently. Like we've mentioned, I think on an earlier show, there is something called the ENS, the Ethereum Name Service, which allows you to attach a username to your address. So instead of Evan's address being, 0xA3912, 28, however many letters long, it could just be conversations with Evan.eth, which would be the same thing as putting an email address, on instead of the giant line of code. And more, blockchains are offering services like that. Multiverse X has something called the hero tag. there are domain names to cover wallet addresses on a ton of different chains at this point.
And there almost certainly in the future will be even easier and easier solutions that will allow you to, that it's got to be.
Yeah, it has
Just a real quick aside about how many, because this is a big point in terms of using an extended public key, you can generate billions of fresh receiving addresses. Using a private key, you can generate billions of public keys. So in terms of keeping them apart, all you've really got to remember is your private key, which is usually why we back it up with those like 12-word phrases. It's why it's such a big deal to remember your phrase and keep it safe, because somebody who has it, they've got your key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a good next place to take this. So far, what we have, just to recap, there are wallets. Wallets are essentially the thing where you can store all of your secret passwords, the passwords that let you do things with the crypto that you've purchased, that you own, that you have earned, that you've gotten, whatever. Those passwords are called keys. There are two kinds. Public, the one that everyone can know, the one that just lets everyone look it up on a blockchain explorer and verify that you're telling the truth. That's kind of the piece of the magic notebook that makes it trustless. No one has to take Evan's word for it, how much he has in his wallet. Anyone can look it up and see for themselves. But only Evan can send things out of that wallet or spend the crypto that is in that wallet. And that is because he has his private key. And that private key, that private password, is the thing that you store on a wallet. There are several kinds of wallets, which we haven't super gotten into yet, but in a nutshell, hot and cold are the two biggest categories. Cold being like this one, not connected to the internet. Hot being like your MetaMask wallet, which is on your browser, which is connected to the internet. In terms of security, hot is more susceptible to being stolen from, hacked, because it's connected to the internet, and anything connected to the internet can be accessed nefariously and illegitimately. A cold wallet is much harder to steal from, but still possible, because technically you could.
Just trying to keep you safe, man. Heard you talking about hot, cold, security, safety. Is it hot?
Yep.
Is it hot?
Because technically, you could, if you're like me and you keep your 24-word secret phrases, the things that let you access these these cold wallets, the wallets not connected to the internet. If someone else knows what your seed phrase is, they can access that wallet and they can steal from it. So it's not theft proof. It's just way harder.
Yeah.
Those secret phrases are not stored anywhere on the internet. They are randomly generated by a piece of encrypted code and then not kept anywhere. And if you don't write it down and you move away from that first screen where it was displayed to you, you're never going to get it back again. There's no forgot password option. It's gone forever. So make sure you pay attention to, if you ever make, and we'll get into this, tomorrow or the next day when we do a side-by-side setup of a couple different kinds of wallets. We'll go through exactly what that looks like when you're given a phrase. And at this point, anywhere that you could make a wallet from who's going to prompt you, like they're going to give you a lot of on-screen warnings. Like, this is your passphrase. Make sure this is written down somewhere secure. And then most of them will even test you. It's like, okay, before you can say, okay, for sure, I'm done, I have it written down. And be like, oh, really? What was the fourth word? And then go from there. How many copies of your seed phrases do you have? Two for all of mine. Important ones. There's the ones that live in my safe at home, and then there's the ones that live in my mom's safe at my mom's house.
Well, that's interesting. Vitalik famously keeps his seed in two places and encrypts his seed. He doesn't use the words. He uses the string of 06124 or whatever. But he's got one in his mom's safe and one in his safe that apparently have to be mathematically combined somehow before you can guess it. So even if you find it, you don't have it. Are you at that level, Alex?
No, but I will say that I would be tempted to be at that level if I had Vitalik money. However, I do not have Vitalik money. So that's a little overkill for my taste.
Yeah.
Um,
It's wild.
but but yeah, no. I mean, I keep a couple copies. You never know, just because anything stored on paper is susceptible to damage. So it's dumb to not have more than one. There are all kinds of things you can buy, of course, to like engrave it on a piece of fireproof stainless steel and encase it in this. There's all kinds of different things you can buy and use, to store these passphrases and stuff, instead of just writing it on paper. But it's really up to you. Whatever makes you feel like you've done your part to secure your stuff. Uh, you know, and I have a number of wallets that, like, the contents of which don't really matter. They're honestly, most of them have nothing in them anymore. So like the wallets that I use day to day to just like connect to things I'm not sure about, that never have more than a couple bucks in them or something like that. There's just They're just in a little notebook on my desk, because if anyone got this, you can't do anything. I mean, you could take $5 worth of gas. It's like the change in my car cup holder kind of thing. Um, but
I like Neil's idea here in the comments of a seed phrase scavenger hunt. I actually think it could be really fun. I'm not
oh
sure
yeah,
how we would orchestrate it, but my tip for that is, did I tell you? I think I told you maybe on a recent episode. There's this artist I like in the space. His name is Shloms, and he always does really weird stuff. Neil, if you're not following him, you should follow him on Twitter. It's SHL0MS. Just a weird guy in the best way, and does secret phrases and key drops everywhere. He recently posted a picture of one he did at Home Depot, where if you've bought drywall before, they have like a digital, scanned series of numbers and letters on the back. And he bought one, reprinted it, took it back to Home Depot or whatever, so that now it wasn't like a barcode for a drywall supply chain. It was like a seed phrase. He said some regular person is going to buy this and put it in their house. They're totally not going to know it, and who knows what's on it. And maybe one crypto person will like find it, or he'll like do that. He'll like remove a manhole and like inscribe it on the bottom and be like, "This is a manhole in some city somewhere, see if you can find it." And I don't think anybody's gotten rich from that, but he puts his art in it. He'll put a little ETH in it.
all of a sudden, all of a sudden, the floor price on drywall sheets is through the roof.
Through the roof, yeah, to the moon. So I love
Yeah, no, I
stuff like
mean,
that.
those are, you could totally just, I mean, make a wallet, put some kind of prize money in it, prize NFT or something like that, and just like hide the words of the seed phrase, around on some sort of online or real life scavenger hunt, and off you go.
Neil says, ripping apart my house right now. I know, dude. Me too. I'm coming over with a hammer. Let's do it. But to give people, I just wanted to say one last thing about the specifics of encryption to give people an idea about like the magnitude of this. We said a second ago, billions of addresses, billions of combinations. The order of magnitude you'd have to worry about in terms of like somebody guessing or breaking this by themselves is so unlikely that the Bitcoin network, for one example, doesn't even check which addresses already exist when it generates new ones, because the likelihood of what they call a collision, meaning producing the same one, is so low. It's like 10 to the 77th power, like a 10 with 77 zeros after it likelihood. There are almost that many atoms in the universe by some scientists' estimate. That's the stat they always pull. Um,
Yeah.
it's If you want to learn more about it, though, I wanted to tell you the encryption that Bitcoin uses specifically as part of its mining process, and also has to do with how keys interact. That would be a fun deep dive for somebody so inclined. Is called SHA 256. And there are other types of encryption at play. It's a super nerdy topic. It's not something I'm terribly equipped to speak on, more than to tell you about it. But it is integral in how proof of work happens, in how mining and guessing of the numbers happens. And it's something that somebody who wanted to work in this, who wanted to solve problems around it, or just generally wanted to do a deeper dive, should check out. Um, the last thing I wanted to tell you is how specifically the math works so that a key is generated. Because I don't think we said that, and it's quick and easy. Does that seem like a fine thing to kind of take us out at this point on, or at least
Yeah,
for this moment?
for sure.
So Let me see if I can explain this here from my notes without getting too. So when someone joins the network, whether they sign up at Coinbase or they want to buy Bitcoin from a decentralized exchange, what happens is there is a pair of keys generated, a public key and a private key. But first, the private key starts. It starts as a random number that is generated securely by the protocol. Okay? The cryptographic standards of the Bitcoin protocol, SHA-256 is the encryption method. If you wanted to look it up to see the specific equation, you could go to the white paper and you could do it with a paper and a pencil. You could generate your own private key. And as I said, it's vast enough so that there are no two users going to be the same. One in a 00000, big time unlikely.
Yep.
Once they generate this number, then what happens is a corresponding public key, just one, is derived using what's called an elliptic curve multiplication. That means it's a one-way cryptographic function. As the function progresses, it becomes significantly harder to reverse the function to guess the number that started it. So while it's feasible and easy to generate a public key from a private key with this math, it's really, really, really hard to undo it. And then they further process it through the hashing algorithms, in this case, this SHA-256, to create a Bitcoin address from this number. This is what goes in the notebook. It's what's sent to you and what you can start sharing with other people to receive your Bitcoin, and also to create as many other wallets possible. Most users will use an interface like click a button to create a new wallet kind of thing. But what's happening behind the scenes is that your private key is being put through a math problem and a public key is being spit out. Check out the Bitcoin white paper if you want to see the equation. I think there are people who have it tattooed on their bodies, but I don't know it. You know what I mean? And you don't need to know it to start playing around with it. But my point is just to say this can go as deep as you want it to with like the nerd core, the math core, you know, or as shallow as you want it to.
Something to take away from all of this too is not necessarily that you need to go learn and know and understand all of the specifics, you know, to the way that the code works and all of that shit. Because if you're like me, personally, and this is, don't let me speak for you. If you feel differently, then by all means, take it as far as you want. I don't personally have the inclination to learn and understand all of the intricate specifics of all of this code and like learn how to read all of the code and verify and audit all of these different blockchains codes for myself. But I know that the code is there and I know that I could if I wanted to. So I take personal security just from knowing the way that these things are constructed versus a guy at a popsicle stand who's just telling me like, trust me, bro, I'm doing some big math problems back here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, really? Can I see the math? No. Don't worry about it. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. I got it under control. With Bitcoin, it's more like, hey, I'm doing some crazy math back here. So you're good. And I could be like, okay, can I see it? Absolutely. Here is all of it for you. Go do literally whatever you want with it to prove that it's legit. And then you could do that. I wanted to hit, so Jim, you said you're worried about Trojans, keyloggers, remote access software. Yes. So there is no end to how careful you can be with your digital cybersecurity. I mean, there is an
the
entire
vulnerable part is you. It's not the math. You are the vulnerable part.
So, you know, as many different ways as there are to exploit code and exploit digital assets and cyber. I mean, I could have, like Evan just said, the most intricate and secure cryptographic, obfuscation method to hiding my digital keys and all of my passwords. And, you know, there could be, like Evan said, 10 to the 77th power odds that you're, you know, ever going to figure out what it is, whatever. But I could store all of it on my cell phone and then leave my phone on a park bench without a pin number on it, and someone just opens my notes app and reads my passphrase, and all of a sudden there it goes, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
nothing is idiot proof. Uh, and so you have to basically determine how far do you want to take your personal security. Um, and like that, I mean, another good example, right? Like, so once in a blue moon, there is a need for you to give your social security number to somebody, right? And there are different ways that you could give it to somebody. So for example, in some of the ways that like Evan and I or Mac and I have ever exchanged like passwords and usernames to stuff, right? Like I never send it all in the same place because, so I'll DM like the first 12 letters of something to him through Discord. Then I'll send the rest of it in a WhatsApp message, and then I'll send more of it in an email. Then I'll text him some of it. Then I'll call him and tell him the rest of it. You just cut it up into all these different places. With regards to like keyloggers and all of this sort of stuff, two things. I have two laptops. One of them is a work computer, the one that like comes with me, that if I travel, I take it with me. It's portable. It leaves my house all the time. Then I have this other one that has literally never left my desk. I bought it. I put it here. It stays right there. It doesn't get connected. I do different things on both of them. I don't go to certain kinds of websites or certain protocols. I don't connect to all sorts of stuff. I don't like log into a ton of different shit on this one. I keep it like as minimal as humanly possible, just to lessen the chances that something nefarious is going to get downloaded on it or whatever. Right? Like that's not your porn computer right there. Right? Like that's a different one that you don't also store your private keys on. Because who knows what you're going to get into, right? So you can take all kinds of personal steps to increase your own personal cybersecurity in your house. Like don't use your cell phone for your private key storage because you could lose your phone. You can get SIM swapped. It's much easier to steal things off of a cell phone, things that are only hidden behind a 4-digit PIN code most of the time. Now it's a little bit different with most phones having biometric and face recognition, whatever. But again, that's not impossible to get through either,
No.
because I don't think I know of any phones where you can like, no, my fingerprint's not reading right now. Swipe away and just enter the PIN code, right? Like it's not a security thing. It's an ease of convenience kind of thing.
Yeah,
And then you have
mine does that.
Evans. What?
Mine does that.
Yours has a fingerprint reader on it?
Mm-hmm.
I
And
would
it
have
allows me to swap over and enter the PIN code when I have my gloves on or something like that.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, mine does the same thing. Um,
Aren't you
so
impressed though that I've got that level of
I am
biometric
impressed that your
security?
phone. I am impressed that your phone has the capability to read a fingerprint. Yes, I would have thought you were still on buttons and texting with T9.
Yeah, dude.
Um,
But Jim commented here about the different platforms. Like he said the weakest link is you and FTX and Mt. Gox and Bitfinex and Celsius, et cetera, et cetera. The point is, it's only as good as the custodian practices security. And at the other end, somewhere, as you like to say, there is a human that you gotta trust. And I would rather, it's one of the reasons we love regulations. I would rather trust a security company or a well-funded company to be, first of all, sufficiently decentralized. That's a statement thrown around in the Ethereum community a lot, that there is a spectrum of decentralization, and you don't have to be at this far most point to say, yes, this is decentralized enough.
yeah.
Some people ideologically prefer that. They will probably never use an exchange. For myself, probably for you, Alex, and I would say most of the people that we talk to, it is good to be decentralized, but you don't have to be so. You miss out on a lot of convenience. I think most people who use crypto in the future will trust to some extent somebody somewhere because they're going to want password reset or because they're going to want a username. And I think there are lots of things that crypto companies can do better than Web 2 companies who really, leveraged your trust in sometimes irresponsible ways. But I don't know. I expect that we're going to see more improvements in that. And I think we already have seen them. I think Coinbase is a great example. I think Kraken is a good example too. Um, the
I mean,
policies and
like you said,
procedures they have, you know?
the point to all this is not that you personally, you the singular human, are the only weak point. It's just the code is not the weak point. The weak point is all of the different people and things that access it and use it.
What an interesting comment. I only trust entities that aren't for profit and attract people willing to risk life for cause. What I personally find is the problem there is that most people who perform risking their lives do it for money. And also that incentives can change in a minute. If I was risking my life for a cause and found the cause was corrupt, my loyalty would change. If new information was introduced, I would rather trust, a protocol that can make a commitment that is not a human. Is the whole reason I'm into this space at all. Is that some human somewhere can say, hey, we care about, I don't know, rescue dogs. Every dollar that comes to this protocol will be automatically forwarded to this place. The place could change. It might no longer be a dog rescue. My dollars might stop coming in, but that protocol is going to work the same way every time, the way a calculator does math. I don't need to trust it. It doesn't need to be incentivized. I'm into that.
I mean, I fit perfectly into that exact description.
Yeah.
I used to risk my life for a cause, found that the cause was not exactly all that it was cracked up to be. No longer do that.
I like this follow-up comment too. I would trust the actual dogs only. Probably.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny too because now I'm thinking about all of the different corrupt nonprofits all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, but the point is, you wouldn't have to trust the protocol. You could verify it the same way you don't have to trust a calculator because you know a little bit of basic math. You can see a calculator is programmed correctly or it's not. When you press 2 plus 2, you don't have to trust it. You just verify. If it comes out and it says 5, you've verified it's wrong. You don't have to hope every time it does the same thing. It's a program. It runs. It's not an institution or a judge or a Congress. It's a fixed thing. Catholic Church has entered the chat. Neil says.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking of was the Joel Osteens of the world.
Oh
Some
my
of the
God.
most corrupt individuals on the planet.
I'm so sorry to derail this. I have just done something where, I made the text super huge. Have you ever seen this? If you swipe right, the comments become ginormous. Oh my God. Sorry, everybody. I'm a total boomer. Yeah. Talk about corruption. That's why we're here. We love that people have the technology to, with their friends or their adversaries, organize around something that matters to them and set rules that can operate autonomously. Totally arbitrary rules, like every dollar earned goes to the dogs. Or like when a new person joins the network, we send them all a piece of information that could be $1. Whatever. It doesn't have to be anything, that we're all going to use our identities anonymously to vote on stuff. The possibilities are quite literally endless, and we talk about it all the time on this show. So that's my pitch to say, for everybody who's coming in the room now, this is a great conversation. We want you to be here regularly, so we come here regularly at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time, Monday through Thursday. You can find us here live on TikTok. We post everything to YouTube later and try to keep it general enough that you can find value from it in the future. And of course, if you're a Discord person, come on in. We've got an always free Discord where we talk about lots of different stuff related to cryptocurrency, blockchain, world happenings in those areas. Web3 Jim just posted a great tip about Ruby, which I know is a company he's got experience with, doing cool game development stuff on the blockchain, and we're hip to that. If that sounds like something you're into, join us in Discord, discord.gg/themany. Did you see his post there? He was giving us some more context about Ruby. It sounds like they've got a token now, in addition to several games that people can play, which is pretty cool.
I haven't, but I saw his comment, so I made a point to go check it out after we're wrapped up here.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to check it out. And Jim, I know it's 3 a.m. there, but we'll certainly, I'm sure, have some questions for you, and maybe we can do a deep dive on it when we talk about Gaming Week.
For sure.
Alex, can you confirm this? Actual demons from hell need to store their keys too, the comment says. Can you confirm?
Um, yeah.
You and Baphomet hanging out with your with your keys, just
With our private keys.
yeah.
There's an interesting ad campaign. The Satan. How does Satan store his private key compared to Vitalik?
I wanted to do a skit, like just a YouTube skit called "Satan in My Breakfast Cereal," and I'm not sure how it worked, except I just got a really funny visual in my head. You remember, you know how like you can put somebody's face on anything, like Teletubbies used to make the sun into a baby's face or whatever, and it just looks kind of weird. I just got this image of this, like, I don't know, like Wes Anderson kind of looking rundown apartment, and a guy sits down in a robe. He's kind of scraggly and like skinny fat, and he like pours a bowl of cornflakes and he pours the milk on top of it, and he's like really tired, and he goes to look, and the camera pans down to the cereal bowl, and it's a face, and it's just like, hello, and it's like, do not eat me, I am your Dark Lord. And just like a conversation with Satan in his breakfast cereal. You don't know why he's in the breakfast cereal. And he comes to but he like needs help getting out, and he's like, you fool. Don't eat me. I don't know. I think it could be good. I think it could at least be really weird. So, back.
Yeah, super weird. The other day, Christina was scrolling on TikTok. She came across your live stream of you dressed as Jesus, and she's just like, "What the actual hell is Evan ever doing?" And I was like,
I am trying to figure that out. We're pretty much at the end of the show, so we can do some teasing. But let me tell you about this. So I haven't figured it out yet. Maybe you have feedback or insight for me. Kim said it was. I need to go watch it because I need to figure out what the performance reads as apart from the performance. I am really interested in doing a performance as Jesus of Nazareth for the purpose of engaging with people. Mostly I'm interested in talking to people who are Christian, who are not Christian. I guess the spiritual gamut.
"That's everyone."
I guess about just about like misconceptions about Christ as a concept, right? It's a construction, and it probably looks a lot different than that idea looked in the time Jesus of Nazareth was alive. And if Jesus of Nazareth was going to answer questions about who they were, I don't know. I just think there's a big disconnect. And I think that Jesus of Nazareth as a person, as a teacher of spiritual truths, is probably somebody worth learning from. There could certainly be more love there. Love thy neighbor. There probably needs to be less, send money to my church and, believe in me or you'll go to hell, is what I think Jesus of Nazareth would say. And I would like to stand in for that as somebody who has an informed opinion about it and also as an entertainer, to just make it fun and invite people into deeper conversation and be compassionate and hold space. I'm still not quite sure how the performance of that looks because I don't want it to seem, you see a lot of people on TikTok doing characters and they're satirical and it's funny. There's call-ins. I don't know. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Right now, I've just got snarky headlines like dying for your sins because giving up Netflix wasn't an option for Lent. So, So stay tuned. When we're not talking about crypto, that's what I'm doing. Weird performance art on TikTok.
Say, yeah, not entirely. There are legitimate court documents of a dude named Jesus who was put on trial and sentenced to execution.
Yeah, and my understanding is that the historicity,
the walking on water shit is a little bit different,
exactly.
But there was a dude that some people killed for doing the things that he was walking around talking about doing.
Yeah, and even if there wasn't, like the character as they exist in this like canonical literature, is certainly based on people. And as a character, certainly has a strong viewpoint, a clear persona that I just think has been so terribly distorted, ironically, by people who often adorn that person's name, and I think it's a problem. I think it's a problem, even if there's no historical basis. Even if we find out that there never was a man named Jesus who was not a carpenter, who did not die, it was this other criminal or whatever. The way people use it in the world now is worth attending to, I think. Definitely both in on the con. I'm sorry, I'm just catching up to the comments. You'd enjoy Myth Vision scholar interviews. I probably would. I do like scholars and interviews.
Yeah, I don't know. I've reached the end of how much I'm willing to care about this, unfortunately.
Goes to show the power of stories. Yeah, that's okay. I won't take it personally. I care about it too much.
I care about other things too much that are, questionably worth it or not.
I get it. But that's why we talk about this, right? We're just two strangers sharing our opinions on the internet.
It's true.
And some of them, man, I think some of your opinions are pretty great.
They're worth exactly what you think they are.
Yeah. What do you think? Should we do we have final thoughts or a preview we want to give for tomorrow to bring people back?
I think just
do a live setup tomorrow. Yeah.
Yep. Do some wallet setups and talk about some better security practices for keeping your shit safe.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of how far you can take it, all that sort of stuff. But no, I think this is kind of, at least in my head, the last piece of like foundational information. And then I think at the end of it, it would be cool to summarize, like, okay, if you wanted to get into this, here's the small bit of information that you actually do need to know before you can get into Web3. And Jim, we are not doing a 4-day long word this time. There will be one this week, but just as there is one POAP for the week, there will only be one day. So I think on Thursday we'll pick the week up by sharing the word.
Give me your feedback. Maybe we should give the word every day and then just open the claim Thursday. I don't know. What is going to be the most helpful for people? We just thought one day Thursday, but
yeah. Daniel, that's next week.
Yes, absolutely. Next week, degenerate gambling.
Yeah, now that we have the foundational building blocks laid, it's time to get to the crux and the meat and potatoes of this show: gambling on shitcoins with 100x leverage.
Yeah,
betting the house.
Yeah, baby.
Followed by how to take out a second mortgage and easy ways to sell your car
or your kidney.
Yeah. What kinds of organs can you sell and still live in order to gamble on more shitcoins?
Gallbladder token. Yeah, help me, please.
Yeah,
buy my token. And this is going to be. Let me tell you. So tomorrow, Alex and I will go. I think we should do. I think we should even do like a hot wallet, maybe a Coinbase, maybe a MetaMask, and also we can go back and forth and show people the different experience on Ledger and Trezor. This is a great episode. I know it's short notice, but if you've got new people in your life who are trying to figure out, okay, but how do I actually buy crypto? I'm going to send it to my dad and be like, look, Dad, here's how you do it. Here's how you set it up. This is what you want to do. I don't know a lot of folks who are doing that kind of content. There's probably some really good walkthroughs on YouTube, almost certainly. I've seen several. But if you have questions about that, this is going to be a great episode for you. So please come back and join us tomorrow, and join us all this week as we continue to talk about how to secure your tokenized digital assets. And if you've got more questions, leave them in the Discord. We'll keep the conversation going there at discord.gg/themany. discord.gg/themany. Follow us on YouTube at Faceless_Labs to catch these episodes later. I'll have this one up a little later today. And Alex, what do you think? You got good jokes? Final thoughts, words of wisdom?
Well met.
As am I. Good to talk to you, my friend, and good to talk to all of you. We'll see you tomorrow. Until next time, rise up, everyone.